Good evening. Tonight is October 30th, and this is a meeting of the special meeting of the school board for the purpose of reviewing the budget and a public hearing. I guess there's comment on that as well. Mr. Dunn, what will we do first?
So we'll do the public hearing. We'll go
Okay.
through the presentation that we did with the Finance Committee that has recommended this to you. And then we'll have public comment. And then after that, you'll open the special board meeting so we can discuss it. And I have a proposed motion based on what the Finance Committee had proposed.
We will also have a non-public session this evening. So with that, I open the public hearing. Ms. Hastings, would you take the attendance, please?
Yes. Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Ms. Meeker.
Here.
Mr. Croto.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Higgins. Here. Ms. Welsh. Here. Mr. Weinberg.
Here.
And I am here, and absent is Mr. Cotton.
Mr. Cotton is excused. We know where he is. He's out away from and unable to attend. So with that, Superintendent or Mr. Dunn, how would you like to start?
Okay,
Jump right
I'll
into
start
it.
with I'll go through the presentation. So this presentation is in your shared folder or also in Teams. The agenda tonight is just to review the fiscal year that just ended on June 30th, 2023. We will go over where things stand with your 24 budget and the recommendations by the Finance Committee. And we'll just take a little look into next year, FY25, just some outlook and some things we're starting to see. Then we will talk about the HVAC and the bus bond plan. The Finance Committee has also recommended that you move forward with that. And then there'll be public comment as well. And then the non-public will happen in the next meeting, not in this meeting. Okay?
Right.
All right. So for
Where is this presentation? Sorry, on Teams.
it's
Which folder?
when you go into general, under the board 2023 folder, files, general, you'll see today's date and it'll say public hearing SBM for special board meeting.
Thanks.
So the the general fund ended for the fiscal year 2023. This is unaudited at the moment. To be 2.346 million more than you need. So this shows you your expenditures were 2.9 greater. Your revenue was 747,000 greater. And then you had an amount of money that came over from the, so you take the difference of those two, you have 3.6 million. Then you had encumbrances that came forward from the prior year. We spent 1.2 million of those encumbrances, so that left 897,649. So when you total all that up, you have $4,546,809. You needed 2.2 million to lower taxes to carry forward into this new budget, so that leaves 2.3 million more than you need. Okay, and we're going to show you where we went with that. In front of you is a handout that is a simple summary of revenue on the left and expenses on the right. The big drivers as we look at this were on the revenue side were some extra revenue for money that we received from ESSER funds reimbursing ourselves. We also had some additional tuition as it relates to CRTC and Deerfield. And also some additional Medicaid funds because we budgeted 400. In this current budget, we budgeted 700. So we pretty much eat that up. And then we also had some more, I'm sorry, nothing. Let me go on the expense side. We had 1.4 million in salaries that we did not use and 2.7 in health benefit. Of that, about 700,000 was a one-time premium holiday. To compare that to this year, the premium holiday is about $79,000 compared to 700,000. So a lot of this is one-time money that we won't see. As I mentioned, we carried over down in the blue box there, the release of the prior encumbrances. There was $900,000 that was unspent. That's one-time money from the prior year. When you take the revenue and the expenditures combined, that's where you get the 4.5. Again, we need 2.2. That gives you $2,346,000 more than you need. So, as we move on through this, we're going to show the proposal of what to do with these. With most of this is one-time money. For fiscal year 24, this is the budget that you passed in March 29, 2023. It had a general fund budget of $100,116,118, or about $1.5 million more, or 1.58% increase over the prior year. And in revenue, you're raising 1.51% more revenue this year than last year. Now, what do we do with the money, the one-time money that's coming in and recurring? This is a list of items that we presented to the Finance Committee of where we would do it and where we thought these were one-time expenses going forward. Okay? That totals $5.4 million. Then the B group are expenditures that are a combination of either one-time or could be recurring. And whenever we hire at this time of year, typically they are one-year onlys because they've not gone through the process. So, for example, when you look at the trash disposal, our bill went from about $5,500 to $6,900 a month. So, based on the projection for this fiscal year, it's about $17,000 short. We were notified in June that that number was going up. I have watched some of the council debates and have realized that that has been a pretty big topic of discussion, especially as they talk about food and composting, trying to mitigate, and the purple bags, of course. So that when I say recurring, I'm not seeing that going down. We are in a joint trash contract with the city. The city negotiates that, and we work with them. Do the same thing with fuel as well. And then there was a request for a special education teacher, only at .75. So that'll come in as a one-year only. A receptionist for the high school. And then the electric and natural gas next month, December. Our new gas rate will kick in, and that is going up about 75%. The last time I had locked into that, it was December of 20 for the longest that I could go, which was a 3-year deal. And at the time, oil went negative. So it was a good time. Unfortunately, 3 years later, it is not a good time, but we have to do something. So we're going from about, the term I couldn't think, about $5.50 per decatherm up to a little under $10. I think it's $9.47. So it's almost doubling, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I think homeowners are going to see the same thing. Okay, on the revenue side, again, there's that $100 million. We're getting we have the additional unassigned fund balance at 2.3. We're also getting additional special education aid, an EFA phase-out grant, which is part of the Education Freedom Account. This penny differential, which was I put in there from the Finance Committee, that is because when you take and do the math, there winds up being a differential of how much you're going to raise versus how much you have appropriated. And that amount is like $15,300 and some dollars. So we've encumbered that $15,000. Okay, and when we have your meeting, I can discuss that more if you have more questions as it relates to pennies. And literally, that's what I'm talking about, pennies, because your penny could trip things by a percentage. Okay, so and then you have your additional state adequacy, which is $5.9 million. So your total amount is $8.6 million. We've removed all the transfers that you had originally proposed. If If you remember when you passed the budget, we did a lot of one-shot money in anticipation that we would get the adequacy, in hopes that that would happen. It was a risk, but it was a risk worth taking because there were positions that you wanted to fill. So we avoided those one-time monies, and now we've put it into using the funds above. And the Finance Committee also wanted to lower the taxes not only by the 375, but also an additional 125,000. So that's what that $500,000 is, to reduce taxes. Okay, so your final budget, instead of 100,000,000, 116, 118, is now 106, 231, 128.
With most of the money going into trust funds.
Correct. Yep. And you're going to see that.
I have a question, Jack.
Sure.
What's the impact on a household for $500,000 in tax reduction? What's it like on like a $300,000 house? What difference is that going to make?
So 1% on the tax rate equals 700,000. So you're looking at about 0.75% decrease in taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Over our
Over the
past
prior
budget.
year. Yep. So this is their trust funds before the proposed adjustments. This is what you have in them now. And then, yeah. So this is what you have prior to the recommendation from the Finance Committee. Now, assuming that the board passes the budget that the Finance Committee recommended, I'm going to show you a comparison between the 329 budget that you passed and the one based on now that the assessments have come in. So you were looking at a rate of $13.77 on the local up there, a 35-cent increase, or a 2.61% increase. So it'd be $105 on a $300,000 home. The state, which you cannot control, is $1.44, a 23-cent increase, or a 19% increase, or $69. That is what we get as the education tax warrant from the state. Comes through the city and says, this is what we expect the valuation to be, and this is what your per thousand is. The warrant amount will be used to calculate your locally assessed education rate in the fall of 2023. That's what we were given. That doesn't mean what it's going to be, because you have to wait till the assessments come in. Okay? So $15.21 is the total between local and state, 58-cent increase, or 3.96, or $174 on a $300,000 home. Come down the next line to what the assessments came in at. It's at $13.61, or a 19-cent increase, or $1.42, based on the Finance Committee's recommendations and where the assessments came in. So it's a 1.42% increase, or $57 on the local. The state, the valuation came in lower than what they gave on this sheet. So that's a $1.57 increase, or 36 cents, or 29.75% increase in the rate. It's $108. So your total rate is $15.18, 55 cents difference of the two over last year, or a 3.76% increase, or $165. Okay.
Were we working on the same valuation as the state when we did our original estimate?
What they gave me.
No.
Yeah.
So like when we were estimating our base, were we using the same estimated base as the state?
That $1.44 didn't change. I left that exactly the same. Correct.
So I'm assuming valuation didn't grow as much as the state was expecting when it?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So when we did the 1377, were we basing it on the same
Right.
predicted valuation as the state was using for the $1.44? Or we
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no. I do it much more. So I projected a 0.33% increase because I only factor real growth.
Yeah.
It came in at 0.84. The
So it
state,
was bigger than we had anticipated.
Oh, yeah. but the
But
states,
less than the state.
the states was 400 million higher than what it came in at.
Okay,
So that's the problem.
okay.
Okay.
So we.
Yeah, we're much more
cutting our part in
conservative.
half and they double theirs.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
So.
And so very little difference in tax rate.
Yep. But again, you have no control over it. I
Yeah.
take what they give me, I plug it in, and then the numbers are the numbers. So.
But that's an
Unfortunate.
important point for the public to understand.
Yeah. No, and a lot of this stems back to what happened the year prior. And if you remember in the budget, the state decided to take $100 million out of the education trust fund and lower property taxes.
Right.
That is what all this stems from. They did one shot, and now it came back because it was a one-shot deal to lower property taxes. And now the 100 million had to come back.
And now we're proposing a one-shot
Right.
reduction
Isn't that
in
something-
property
No, no, no,
taxes.
we're not doing any reduction. The state is the one.
Oh, no,
What the finance committee is proposing is reducing our increase. So we would still be increasing tax rate 1.42%, but not 2.61%,
Which is what we were
which
originally.
was what we were originally proposing. And I think just, the thought is there was a lot of additional funds from the state. Some of that was when they put, so that, and that we are going to be asking a lot from our taxpayers.
That's really what is sitting in the back of my head is
Yeah.
not only do we have a school to build, but we have 3 full-time positions that we need to add to our general fund that are currently being paid for by grant funding.
Which one?
Our DEIJ director,
No, they
Yeah.
got moved to general.
they did
fund.
get moved
Yeah.
to general?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So we put back, and all the funds that we,
Okay,
when we did the budget in March, that we were using trust funds,
Yeah.
This proposal puts all of those monies back in the trust fund.
okay,
It puts most of the rest of the money in the trust funds, particularly the building trust fund to help level, so that we can use that to offset when our building projects come due. But we also thought keeping the tax rate
as low as possible.
as low as possible this year, recognizing when we received additional funds, we're not spending all the additional funds, and we're gonna get, at least for next year, that same amount of state aid plus another $700,000.
Okay,
So we're not spending that, so we just thought and I think the city side is going up quite a bit, so.
that's the rumor, yeah.
So just to, to say, let's keep it under 2 or keep it
Okay.
under 1.5, and then, but while we're doing that, I would go more, but also I think what we're doing with the money is we're putting it aside so that we're not doing an 8% tax increase.
Next year, yeah,
More likely 5 years when the first run-let bill comes due.
yeah, for sure, yeah.
So that if we can set it all aside, as much aside now as we can.
Thank you, Pam, I really appreciate that explanation.
And I think it's worth saying is that our budget is increased 1.52% this past year, over this past year. That's in light of the inflation and all that we are seeing. So I think that's a great job on the part of the administration for cutting. And our taxes are going up from the part we control, 1.42%.
I have a quick question. I watched the finance committee meeting. Granted, I was doing other things while I was watching it, so.
Weren't riveted.
I know, right? But it was my understanding that the original proposal that came from the administration was a $350,000 reduction.
Right.
And then it was the request of the finance committee to increase that
Yeah.
reduction to $500,000. And can you please remind me where that money is coming out? Like, if we're adding to that reduction, where did that come from?
We're putting 120, I think the original proposal was 375. So we're putting 125 less in trust funds.
In trust funds. Is it distributed among the trust funds, or is it a specific trust fund?
Specifically the instructional.
Instructional,
Yeah.
okay.
And how much currently exists You know what I'm asking.
The instructional
Thank you.
trust right now is 1.7 million. That's
Okay.
before you add the 900 and some thousand.
Okay.
So all our
So-
trust funds are pretty.
Yeah.
They look
How
healthy.
Robust,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Energy.
And we'll work with you to let that out at the appropriate times to maintain the tax
Yeah,
rate.
energy's the one that's not really robust, given the,
But this proposal, I believe, adds money to the energy
Yeah.
trust fund as well,
Right.
Okay.
I have to go back.
isn't it?
No, I did not add
No.
any to that only because of the fact that I figure it's an ongoing operating expense. How much do I take in one time to
Yeah.
mitigate
Yeah.
that? I'm taking the hit now with that extra adequacy. Hopefully we'll smooth right in. I only did an 11-month gas contract because I'm hoping things will settle down, but it doesn't look good overseas. And that's what's the driver. That's the
Yeah.
driver because they're liquefying it here and sending it over there.
And Jack, you mentioned a little bit about trash and trash collection. We're
Yep.
still under the good contract, the really great contract that they have. That doesn't,
Well, if there is one,
but
that's-
there's gonna be one on the horizon that's
Right.
gonna be much higher.
Correct.
So while, our trash rates went up, they're gonna go up
Yeah.
more.
I mean, you figure they went from, like I said, 55 to 6,900 a month. So it's 1,400 a month.
It's a lot.
If
Because,
there's another one coming,
yeah, there's just not,
listen to that council.
there's
They
not
make it sound
anywhere
like it's
that,
gonna be pretty
there's just
bad.
not anywhere to put trash, right?
Right.
It's getting much, much more expensive, and the city has warned us about that.
Yeah.
I think that's
Our
2 years
school
now.
district is not unlike a household in many respects. We have the same hits that folks are feeling at home, and we need to take care of them.
Well said.
Okay, and then a little outlook into 25, which will be the one you'll be discussing from February through March. So, for workers' comp, we'll see a slight decrease of 2.2%. What we do is we get notices around this time of year from certain vendors because they can start to issue estimates because they know budgets are happening or throughout the state. So we get a not to exceed notice. So I know when they give me that number, that's the worst it's going to be. There could be a premium holiday. I won't know that till July. But that's what I have to budget on. And I will tell you, for property liability and workers' comp, there has not been any in the last couple of years. There used to be, but it hasn't been. Property and liability going up 72,000, so 17.8%. I put down there a superintendent search. I only did that based on the kind of what we
It's not
pay.
an announcement, that's just the length of our current contract with our
Contract.
current superintendent, so. then
Yeah,
this
that's-
discussion's
We're being
not happening.
prudent.
I did ask before putting that on, but I just saying, it's the,
We
that's
gotta
the
think about
reality.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe you need more. I mean, people were questioning that, but I think we paid the search company. It was a local about 25, 30 grand for their fee, and then the rest of it's just picking up little stuff. You start traveling around the country, that's not going to be the right number. A lot of them have been local. Concord has a pretty. I mean, you look the last 23 years. There's been 3. So, anyway, and then health insurance is going up 10%, which when we compare to other districts, from what we're hearing, Health Trust, we're hearing the average is 16.8.
Wow, I thought we'd be among the highest.
No,
If
no.
anyone goes back and watches the presentation they did to the finance committee, the health trust. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's only 10%.
I gave,
Well, I heard highs 20, 21, 22 on Friday from superintendents. One of our group sessions on Friday was on health, and people got numbers from Health Trust as high as 20, 21. Ridiculous.
okay. So that's just a lookout. And then things to think about. If there is going to be a bond payment, whether it's partial or full as it relates to the elementary project. We also have the buses and the HVAC, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And then you have the end of ESSER, which we've tried to wean off of that. I think right now there may be only 2 positions that are in ESSER at the moment. And then you have Deerfield. Obviously, there is no contract renewal with that, so there's they are entering into districts individually. We are the preferred district, as to my understanding. but I don't know what those numbers are gonna look like. And then federally, is there anything else that could be happening? So, okay.
Jack, a quick
Mm-hmm.
question about the one shot. Oh, sorry. Thanks, guys.
Stereo.
The one shot payments included FTE for a special education teacher.
Yep.
Is it 1 year only because that's how contracts work? Like,
We usually
if,
when
if
we-
the need is there past this year, is that something we would then reconsider in future budgets?
Yep.
It wouldn't be prudent to budget it out with our extra money for.
No, just for this year because of the extra and based on caseloads, it was John that came to Kathleen and I and said he
Three-quarters.
felt they needed that to help get through with the new preschool over at Abbott Downing.
Okay, and that would be a hire that would happen.
I think you heard about those high numbers.
Yeah.
But if we budget that full time, that we would budget that at. This year's number for a teacher was 112,000, but likely it'd be a little higher. Usually the special ed teachers come in a little bit higher. But M5 family is what we budget.
Okay.
So that's what you'd see.
How many preschool teachers do we currently have at Abbott Downing?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an increase in preschool, but this position is not preschool. This position
Oh, I'm
would be grades. Yeah, sorry, Jack.
Sorry.
Would be for grades, K, it's usually grades 1, but 1 through 5. It's not a preschool position.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we've had this discussion before about the vendor for lunch and breakfast. Can any of this money be used to offset some of the vendor? Because for folks that don't know, you're charged a fee when you add money, and you pay via the virtual online. And what that means is, if it's if you put in like $50.
You get charged the same fee no matter how much.
Yeah.
Exactly, you get charged the same fee.
$3.75 regardless.
So if you're a family who can put in more
Yeah,
at once, you spend less
total.
per year.
But if you can only put in more limited amounts, like $5, $10, then you're still charged, I think, like $3 or
$3.75
$3.75
per transaction.
So is that possible for the district to do anything to offset those costs?
Am I paying for all of it, or am I paying for certain, if it's a certain transaction amount? Yeah, you can, but I don't know how I would pay for them because it's their account. I'd have to get into some.
The question the
Yeah.
finance committee asked was, can we find out what it would cost if we did not charge a
Got it.
convenience fee, since the convenience is ours and
Got it.
Okay, so the charge is via the district, not via the contractor.
it's via the contractor.
Right.
Oh, okay, so
That's
yeah,
right.
that's.
Yeah, but if we were gonna say we don't want that,
We would absorb it.
what would it
We would
cost?
pay.
Yeah,
The problem is that also if they're not paying anything extra for that, that encourages people to put in this week's amount and next week's
Yeah.
amount, to have multiple transactions, which is not something we want to
Yeah.
incentivize.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you're on a budget and you need to make those payments, you're paying an exorbitant amount of interest or fees on that. Because it's not a percentage.
You can bring cash to the school and have it put on the card, so there is a workaround for families who don't wanna use that, but that's not
convenient by any
it's not well advertised or
No.
encouraged.
Yeah, I wonder if that's, I know we're kind of stuck with what we've got, but a consideration for future contract considerations, or whoever we're involved with, like what the impact is on families individually when they're using that program. I don't know.
I mean, it might be good just if we could find out what the average deposit is, and how many people are making deposits under $20,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which.
it goes
Yeah.
quick.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Especially when
Tell me about
they
it.
sneak in for breakfast.
Yep.
Or they opt for pizza in middle school.
Oh, they don't have that choice in the
I was gonna say, at
But
middle
yes, I'm
school.
sure
Yeah,
that's really-
yeah.
yeah.
Set that up for a future meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
We'll do
I'm
that
glad
for
you
you.
mentioned it, Jonathan.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the bonding of the HVAC at Beaver Meadow and Concord High School. So I'm just taking it back a little bit to June 26th. That was a finance committee meeting that we discussed this, and this is just the types of bonds, high level, that we use. This is the process that we go through. I'm not going to go through this right now because it's not going to be relevant until we actually have to do it. But it isn't like you say, I want $23 million is the number you'll see tonight, and you take one vote and it's done. It's a lengthy process. There's a ratings call and a number of things we have to do process-wise. So back in June, the scope of work for Beaver Meadow, $3.5 million to replace those HVAC units in the summer of '24. Then in the summer of '24, there was discussion to do 4 to 5 units at the high school for $1.7 million in the summer of '24. And the Finance Committee had asked about what it would take to do the entire school. During your July meeting, which I was on remotely, pause on that, and we also had put in buses in here, because usually when I try to go for a larger bond, I'll try to throw in buses, because it's much more economical to put them in a bond than it is to lease from a company. Lease rates right now, if we were to lease these and lease the purchase, their dollar buyouts at the end, is 7-8%. I can do it through this, depending on the term, probably between 3 and 3.5%. So it's much more economical while you're going out the bond to toss some of the stuff in there. Okay. So when you looked at that, we'd have 15. If it was a 15-year for 5.2 million and a 10-year for buses, 6 million. First payment was about 588,000. The committee had asked, what if we did the whole thing? So we had in July, the full board voted an authorization to bond, authorization to reimburse if you go and you bond. That had to get in place. That way, any money you spent between June and the time you bond, you can reimburse yourselves. But you have to have that reimbursement in place. So you voted for that in July. I was remote, so thank you for doing that. It was very quick. But a little bit more detail, I have up to 18 months from that authorization to reimburse. So that gives you the flexibility on when to go to the bond. So right now, when we go through this, I'm kind of targeting January through March to try to do that. I'm hoping the rates kind of dip a little bit, and depending on where all things come. But we do have a little time if we have to skip into next year. But I'd like to be done in this fiscal year if we can. So again, there's a lot of municipal tools that give you the flexibility to finance this stuff. So let me bring up to date as far as what was recommended. So again, this 3.5, you had voted that authorization in July to reimburse that if you move forward, and the 1.7. The Finance Committee, we had shown them, they had asked, what would it take to do the whole high school? The whole high school is additional $16.9 million to do the entire school. So the total would be $18.6 million. What would happen is if the full board voted to do that, we would cancel the install of the 4 or 5 units up there, because you're not going to be able to fully use the system because it's not fully in if you take it in steps. So we would do everything in the summer of '25, and this year you're already doing broken ground, and the plan is to do Beaver Meadow. So when you take all of this, and then we would throw the buses in there, you're looking at about $23 million bond.
Buses go up?
Sorry?
Did the bus price go up from 800 to 900?
100,000, yep.
What's up with that?
So I can make it an even 23 million. Otherwise, it comes to 22.9, and they're like, "Why don't you just do 23?" I'm like, "I'm already there, right? It's small money."
It's a decimal
But
dust.
when you're at that number, it's small. All right, it might mean another bus, but maybe. So that's why I rounded it. So there's the breakdown of 23 million. If you finance it at 15-year, it's 2.4 million. Again, the buses would be 10. If you do 20-year, the first year payment's 2.1 million.
Do we have numbers on this is a silly exercise, I know, but what the overall cost after the life of the bond? Like if we borrow 23, what are we actually spending over the course of the? life of the bond?
How
Like,
much-
how much?
What is,
Interest.
Oh,
what is
what-
interest and, what is principal
Yeah.
and interest come to a total for a 20-year or 15-year?
I think it winds up being about 38 million total.
38. Okay.
Yeah.
My question, Jack, is over the last 2 weeks, there's been a general shift in expectations with regards to long-term interest rates, and does that affect us? Because people are thinking that, rates are going to stay higher a little longer, that the economy is a little more tough, a little more solid than they had originally anticipated, and that the Fed will act accordingly. And so is there a change in, have you touched base with our bonding folks, our underwriters, and to see if
Not
there's a
since
change?
the 18th of October when we had
Okay.
the finance committee, which right now they're telling me anywhere between 3.75 and 4.25.
Okay.
For long term, whether it's 15 or 20.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
So just to give a little about what my perspective on what the finance committee, and we talked about this over a couple of meetings. We don't really save anything, we just drag out the expense of if we do it over 3 years as opposed to doing it all at once. We might actually save a little bit if we do it all at once, because Jack thinks he can get us a better deal if we do it all at once. These are the dehumidified air systems, but we could not put it to use until we did the
Right.
whole building. So if we did it over 3-4 years, it'd be 3-4 years before we could turn on the dehumidified air. And finally, like, the current system is being held together with Matt Cashman's prayers and some
And a bit of luck.
duct tape.
It's always duct tape.
All prayers are going to Runlet right now, but
Yes.
yeah.
And so other than Runlet, this
True in so
with
many
Broken
ways.
Ground, Beaver Meadow, we have all of the schools would have the dehumidified air.
I mean, just given the weather that we've had in the past couple of years, and even this year alone, having some really difficult warm days in the high school, leaving aside Runlet, they've had
Yeah.
all kinds of issues too. But it sort of feels like we don't really have a choice at this point.
I mean, the huge issue is, of course, that Runlet will start
Yeah.
a couple of years, but hopefully we'll get like the bigger ones of these payments done before the Runlet payments start. And if we don't do it now, we're gonna do it in an emergency probably.
Right, right, which will be very expensive.
And I believe it was a unanimous vote from the finance committee to include the high school in, yes.
This is the bond, this is not the budget, just for people to be
Right.
very
This is
clear
the
on.
bond.
Right. So we're
Yeah.
not. Are
We're
we
talking about
vote-
two different topics
Right.
here.
Is this a
We've
separate
already-
motion?
Yes.
Yes, these would be
Alright.
separate, so two different items.
I
Just
only
for
include this
clarification.
because this way you have a big picture of what's coming down the road
Yeah.
and these decisions and why the finance committee made some of its decisions about putting money away that it did. Because your big topics is Runlet, and you have this, and, obviously you have your own bus fleet, and that's aging, so, okay?
So, Jack, to contrast that, either we do 6 million now on one bond, or else we do the smaller bond now and then do another, 6 million bond and another 6 million bond a year after that, and another 6 million bond a year after that.
Yep.
And that would take us to sometime 4 or 5 years from now that we'd be able to flip the switch and cool the high school.
And Runlet will be hopefully getting done, so yeah, you'll get two things. But,
So
what's the
that's our
escalations?
alternatives.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to avoid replacing these HVAC units because we have to do it in the next 5 years. They're all pretty
Well,
much
it's
falling
past.
apart.
I mean, they're 30 years old.
I mean, the one hesitation we had was, of course, then all of these will be aging
At the same
at
time.
the same time. But it's hard to avoid that.
Yeah,
Because they only fix at the same time.
Well-
You know, Even if they're aging a year or two apart, I'm not sure that makes a huge,
And when you're talking about all of these, we're talking about Beaver Meadow,
yeah,
Broken Ground, and the high school.
I mean, we didn't think about that when we installed them.
No.
Here we are.
Or when we let them,
not.
when we didn't replace them when we
Yeah,
probably
kicking
should
the can
have,
down
is
the
probably the,
I think that's
the
more-
better way to put that.
Yeah.
Although I'm not disparaging any prior boards for their decisions. We were probably on it.
I think for the buses too, like while I am comfortable with it now, I would love for us to have like a plan to transition after X amount of time, so we're not buying new gas-powered vehicles. Obviously, that's not for now, but just for future. And I know we have certain grants out as well. I think that would be something good to think about.
If I'm not mistaken, we're supposed to know this month because we went on that collaborative for 3 of them, and then get the infrastructure in and everything. So there is a plan, but the
Thank
buses are only 80 to 125 mile range. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
But it'll get better. So, okay. So I just want to note the other thing is, again, these are numbers. Remember, I said the whole high school might be 22 million. That was them taking it per square foot, standard price. That's what they gave me ballpark. They started to send engineers in. We've come down a little bit. I'm not saying we're going to drop by 7 million again, but it's really digging into that. So right now, 18.6 is the rough number, but all I'll be asking for in your vote in the next meeting would be to say, confirm the finance committee to say, direct the administration to put a finance plan together. Let's move forward with the entire high school. That's all we're asking for tonight.
Jack, if we were to do and fund all of the HVAC systems at the high school at the same time, would they be able to, in a time, and Mr. Cashman may need to answer this one, would we be able to install it all during, I assume, a summer?
That's the goal.
And we'd
To
be
do
able
it
to
in
do
summer
all
of
of them in that
25.
one summer?
That's the plan.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, because we're going to need heat in October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
September, depending on what it
Oh.
looks like.
We may need air conditioning in September.
That's true, too.
Early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's-
I just wanted to ask because, the summer's not really long between the time the kids are gone and the time they're coming
No
back.
better answer that, but that's the goal for next year, to do those 2 buildings next summer, to have them done in the summer. I think there's about a 2-3 week period where they really want to shut the building down as much as they possibly can. Have nobody in it because they want to power it off so they can connect everything.
Okay.
But they'll do preliminary work. They're already pigtailing wires and running thermostats and doing that stuff, getting ready. So when the big units come, some of the inside work is, the roughing is moved along.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Other questions?
So again, other factors is there's a bond premium because investors give you money for you putting money that you need on the market. And then what are those final costs? We'll negotiate a prepaid discount. Is there any energy grants out there that we would use? And then if you do have money left over from the 23 million, you can reprioritize those funds. Boards have done that in the past. That's how third grade wing and part of the high school roof happened because there was savings from the steam to gas. About $1 million, we reprioritized it because it was an equivalent. So, okay. All right, 6:45. I'll go on to, let me see, we can come back and talk about, I'm going to skip that for the moment. I'll do the proposed budget schedule without any specific necessary. Some have some topics. So we're looking at the first meeting for February 7th. And that'll be the opening presentation with the budget overview and then various work sessions. So Mondays and Wednesdays, less the breaks, the February break. This is your friendly schedule for FY25.
You just can't wait to get that budget schedule out there. Okay.
Can I apologize, can I ask a question about, looking back at our former budget hearings and remembering Matt's list of summer projects?
Yes.
And the ones that he could and couldn't get done.
Yep.
There's a list of things he couldn't get done, but they're not really big ticket items, they're repairing. When we approved the budget in the winter, did that cover this last summer? Or with the money that we're talking about tonight, would any of those small projects come back to the table? Like, oh man, now that we have a little bit more, we have a bigger cushion. Were there things that Matt maybe wanted to bring back to the table?
I think with the Capital Facilities Committee meeting on Wednesday night, he could bring those up. The money that we're putting, I think, over $1 million into the school building and renovation trust fund, or
Okay.
$500,000, sorry. If he felt there was something there that you needed to, they could discuss that and just reprioritize that transfer.
Perfect.
Because it's already appropriated. It's
Right.
just a matter of,
Right,
okay, we
where's
said
it
it there, we
going?
want to
Yeah.
divert it.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Plus, there was a little bit of summer money left over from other projects.
Yeah.
Runlet's probably going to start beating into that right now,
Yeah,
because that seems
that's
to be
kind of what I was
ongoing.
thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be we'd be coming to you to tell you we're going to have to start taking from that.
Okay.
So that, some
That's
buffers
good.
there too.
I feel
He's got
yeah.
a little room.
Just anecdotally, like I
Yes.
feel like Runlet deserves a little
Love.
attention and love.
Oh, he's giving it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell you that.
So I just want to make sure that we're being mindful
Yeah.
financially of not sort of leaving those things
Yep.
behind.
But I've actually been careful with the contingency account that I have. So Matt and I have been watching that. I have money, so should he have some things that arise, I'll have money to be able to do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Good question.
All right, so with that, this is a period for public comment. I do not see any public comment unless someone from the board wants to step out of their role of the board and make a comment. And with that, since we don't have any, I will close the public comment period. And at this point, are we closing the public hearing? So I will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Moved by Ms. Higgins,
And I'll
seconded
second.
by Ms. Robinson.
Indeed.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our public hearing portion of this evening is concluded. And with that, I will call to order I was going to say the special meeting to finalize the budget. I don't believe we need to take an attendance roll again, since none of us have changed, but if you want to just note that, Ms. Hastings. And with that, Mr. Dunn, do you have any additional presentation for this particular meeting?
It's just a repeat. I won't go through it, but it's here for us to go back. But I will go right to the motion if you want, or if there's any discussion you need to have.
I do have a clarification question on the separate motions. It's my understanding that the budget requires 7 votes to pass. Does the bonding vote also require all 7 votes, or is it just?
No, because all it is I'm not even asking you to bond.
We're
I'm
not.
asking you to say,
To
prepare a financial. We would
Gotcha.
like to do that. We want to see the financials, but our mindset is, as a board, to do the whole school, not partial.
Okay.
That's all I'm
I
asking
was just
for.
curious, procedurally.
So for this evening, with regards to the bond,
Yep.
we're looking for a vote from the board to direct Mr. Dunn to proceed with a full school approach as opposed to a partial high school approach. And then that will be a vote later on in another
Great.
future meeting with regards to authorizing anything there, so.
I was just
So,
making sure that I mentally was trying to figure out if we're separating the two.
great question and a good, I'm
Yeah,
glad
I'm looking
everybody
for that,
appreciates
yeah.
the clarification.
Who you had this afternoon?
So,
That, I will move
okay.
that we pass the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget with all funds totaling $112,450,303, with a general fund budget of $106,231,128, appropriating $63,889,089 in local taxes and $6,985,756 in state taxes, inclusive of the following deposits and withdrawals to existing funds or expendable trust funds. Deposits: vocational capital reserve fund for an amount up to $175,000, $175,681. Facilities and renovation trust fund for an amount up to $4,120,000. Food service fund for an amount up to $35,000. Renovation and maintenance trust fund for an amount up to $614,098. Special education expendable trust fund for an amount up to $1,287,692. Instructional materials trust fund for an amount up to $923,625. Technology innovation trust fund for an amount up to $200,000. And also inclusive of the following withdrawals from, that's my Long Island, from expendable trust funds to fund appropriations. CRTC vocational trust fund for an amount up to $200,000. The board authorizes the administration to make any adjustments to the fiscal year 24 budget numbers to reflect the intent of the board.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Is there a second to the
Second.
motion? Seconded by Mr. Weinberg. Discussion. Now, this is the recommendation of the Finance Committee. We can adjust any of these should anyone want to put that to a vote, or you can, this is our final. But whatever we choose to do requires 7 out of the 9 votes. So, anyone have any questions, discussion, or anything for the Finance Committee or for our general discussion?
Well,
Yes,
I
Mr.
guess
Weinberg.
it might be a conversation for a future finance committee. I know some board members have brought this up in the past about the DEIJ position having an assistant, and I didn't know if there was any discussion within the finance committee or in the administration about providing more support there and what that might look like.
I don't believe for this year.
Okay.
There is, because it's not included in this budget.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be something that if you want to bring up in the future budget
Sure.
for next school year. But it's certainly worth talking about if you'd like to. Anybody else?
I'm happy to help with that discussion as well,
Okay.
moving forward.
Are we looking at that as something that we'd want to include in the upcoming budget
Yeah.
in January?
I think it's worthy exploring.
Okay, so, if the board is in agreement, let's add that to discussion point for January, February, March, however
April,
long our
May.
budget's on. Take whichever the appropriate session is.
Should I bring the calendar back up? No.
Yeah,
I've
no.
asked, Jack and I have asked all the department heads,
Yeah.
the folks, to prepare their budgets in anticipation of the deliberations, so.
Great.
They all know that they have work to do to make presentations. At
Get
least
your
to begin
requests
with
in.
us. Exactly, exactly.
So-
So that's already underway.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weinberg. Thank you, Ms. Robinson, on that. Does anybody else have anything else?
I just have
Go ahead, Mr. Crowe.
a request, Jack. On one of our slides previous, and we don't need to go back to it, but just, you mentioned something about the Energy Reserve Trust, and you sort of felt or espoused that it's okay, we'll take care of it somehow. You didn't say somehow, I know you knew more than that, but tell me what you thought about that again, just refresh my
Well,
memory.
just because it's an
not-
operating expense, and I don't know how many one-times I can do. I mean, it would be in the, we enter into contracts, I mean, it would have to be something that would be unanticipated. I don't think, well, especially with this correction, I don't think I'm gonna be $341,000 off.
Okay.
But I think it should be able to be there in the event we have high energy that year, but to use about a third of either natural gas or electric, I think would be a lot. Just because it's operational cost. That's why I don't know if there's a need to put it in there.
Good, thank
So-
you, that's what I
And
needed to
and if
hear.
we are struggling somewhere, you do have the school building renovation, and we cut back on maybe putting the stabilization money away if we
Right.
had to, but.
To follow up on that,
Yeah.
Jack, is that level or that amount of the Energy Reserve Trust pretty consistent with what we have maintained over, say, the last 5 years?
Yeah, it used to be upwards of $1 million and a little
Mm-hmm.
higher. And what they did is the board used the money to pay its Noresco lease payment.
Mm-hmm.
But you may
Yeah.
remember that back in the day because we were trying to spend it down
Because we didn't use it.
because we didn't use it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it'd have to be an emergency to use it.
Thank you, Mr. Croto. Anyone else have any questions? Not seeing any. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, let's make this a roll call vote, please. I'll call it, thank you, we can call it as a roll call. So that just
Aye.
puts the pressure on Brenda.
Ms. Meeker,
Yes.
Mr. Croto,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Higgins,
Yep.
Ms. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Weinberg,
Aye.
and I will vote aye.
So the required number of people have, on the board have approved it, so that adjustment or modification to the budget is approved, Mr. Dunn, so.
Thank you. Now the next 4 nights are, hopefully I get through that. Because until I work with DRA, they have a lot of new people over there too. We've been having back and forth, so hopefully everything comes out. That's why I asked for that thing at the end to make it convey the intent of the board. And we'll do our best to get there. So I put in a very simple motion as it relates to the HVAC. And again, this is just to give us some direction as a board that you can confirm that the finance committee is going down the path the board really wants to go down.
Is there any financial implication with this beforehand?
No,
No. Okay.
no, because there won't be a pre-pay. I'll just start negotiating and putting the plans together to do it. The only one that is, right now, we're committed to moving forward is the Beaver Meadow. Is that when you voted in the authorization to reimburse? Broken ground, yes, I'm sorry, that's all Esser. Beaver Meadow is partial, and then, this is the biggie, so.
I move that the board direct the administration to develop finance plans to replace the entire HVAC system at Concord High School with an estimated value of $18.6 million.
Second that?
Okay, motion made by Ms. Walsh and seconded by Ms. Hastings. Is there any discussion? No. Go ahead.
Actually, I know that you'll probably do this, but just to make sure that my own personal I's are dotted, what the bond implication is going to be as far as the tax burden is concerned. If you could give us, when you come back with all of this, if you can let us know what these payments are going to look like on a tax bill, that would be very helpful for the public. Meaning me. It would be very helpful for me.
I think Mr. Dunn did that at finance.
Did.
I think he
but
does have
did
a schedule
with-
of payments.
We did it with Runlet in there.
Yep, let me see if I can,
I'd love
did.
to know that.
So-
Scenario.
I did a little updating, so let me get rid of this. Oops, it's my little thing that ran out.
We've all got those.
So, if we go across, this is your existing debt. Let me see if I can get a little zoom in on there for you.
Yeah, that is a little tough, Jack.
That a little better?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So if 2024, right now, your outstanding debt and what's included in that debt is, and I do that in the budget, I show you that it is the 3 elementary schools and the HVAC system at Runlet. They're the 2 that make up that. Then, any new debt, nothing. There's the HVAC and bus plan. That's financed over 20 years. Okay, that's the 20-year number, 2.1 million. So your cumulative debt is $4.1 million. So the tax impact to pay that is 88 cents per thousand, just to cover that, okay? So the budget you just passed, 106, 231, 128. There's the valuation that the city gave me. So assuming that you maintained a debt service of 5% of the general fund, that'd be about 5.3 million. You're 1.163 million under that number right now. Okay? So you could absorb it and still stay under. There'd be no additional tax impact. And you'd still be saving for Runlet.
Okay.
That's what makes that stabilization fund
Okay.
best.
All right.
Okay?
Yep.
Now,
Now you're gonna put.
I'm going to add Runlet into the project.
Then it gets scary.
Oh God.
Then things start to get
I'm
a little.
already feeling sick,
Hold on.
Sam.
The $200 million budget made it scary. Like,
Yeah.
Let me find
In
that.
20
There it is.
what year is that?
Okay, so let me do my zoom back
Is
in.
that like 2040?
Okay, let me do. Oof, it's okay.
Is
All
it?
preliminary. We'll play with it. We'll play with it.
We have before.
We'll make it work. So now you take 2.1, 2 million, 2.1, yours are 4.1, 7.6 million. That's assuming, again, it was a $176 million project. State paid its 40%. We had 60. You got everything in the school. And their total debt is 11.7 or $2.50 per thousand. Now you're looking at $443. Okay. Now that is before whatever you create in savings from value engineering the building, what bids come in at, any type of grants, and use of your stabilization fund, which, based on your vote last night, would put it at 14.9 million. That's why that fund's so important. So now, say I go down and I say, simply, I want to take 2 million a year and apply it. Now you're at $300, 278, 246.
Okay.
So you can use that money however you want to smooth it out. Okay? But I just used, you had $921,000 left now.
Okay.
And that also has the Runlet bond starting the same year as the.
I'd assume
back
that it'll
bond,
happen right now. Yep.
Right now.
Is not likely.
Nope.
So we pay down, we would have,
Paid down the
they
other
would be
debt.
a little less, they would be
Yep.
coming down a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I wanted to here, I could just copy that out. And if I said, say the bond didn't start for 2 more years for whatever reason.
And that
I
excludes
don't.
building aid, correct?
No, that's net of
That
building aid.
includes
That includes building aid. It's the 105.
Got it.
So now you're,
I don't
now
know
if you
if
stagger them, see you're at 265.
Should save that for him.
Yeah, he'll appreciate that.
So now you, if you stagger it, you're at $265. And again, notice the value of the home didn't change. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many factors, but
Yeah.
you're at least getting an idea.
You did
Okay.
did you keep the same valuation number you did, didn't you?
No, the valuation I do have, the
Or-
valuation?
yeah.
No, I have it growing.
Oh, you did?
I have it grown by 0.25%.
Okay.
Remember, I budgeted
I mean, we don't
0.33,
have
it
anything
came in at
yet,
0.84.
Yeah.
I think we're probably at a tipping point where things will even out, but you do have a lot of potential building over the next 5 years, so it could be increasing the tax base, which would help this.
This is also assuming that the Memorial Field project doesn't move forward. in
That's the other,
next.
that's the third one I wasn't thinking of, yes.
This also assumes a school district budget growth of 3.04%, which we were at 1.52% this.
1.58, yeah.
1.58%.
So, mhm.
There, believe me, Jack will have many, many, many different,
Oh, yeah.
spreadsheets for you to review when it comes.
But at least
to-
gives you an idea of where that's gonna run,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I appreciate the clarification.
When the budget hits 205, we won't probably be here.
Never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm never
Some
Barb
of
will
us
be-
might.
Barb might be.
I'm never leaving.
She's going for the Betty record there.
No.
So,
Okay.
all right, thank you. Other questions or discussion
So you
points?
finalize that vote on that?
No,
Sorry.
we're still in the discussion period of that
we put
vote,
that out.
so
I-
does
I
anybody
just-
have any more?
It's
Go ahead.
important, and Ms. Walsh brought up some very valid points and important points that came out of the Finance Committee. Those numbers were deliberated upon for a long time that night. And so it's important for the public to understand that we don't just throw $18 million at things just because, we're the board and we can do it. Everyone at that meeting and all of us at these meetings think really carefully about all of this spending and in best interest of the district and the taxpayers as well.
Thank you, Mr. Croto. Well said. Any other discussion or any other questions? Does everyone remember the motion?
It's
It's right behind you.
Black and white.
There we go. So, if there isn't any discussion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Ms. Meeker,
Yes.
Mr. Croto,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Aye.
Ms. Higgins. Aye. Ms. Walsh. Aye. Mr. Weinberg?
Yes.
And I am yes.
Motion passes.
I have to mix it up.
Is, Superintendent, Mr. Dunn, is there anything else before we go into
I think we're
non-public?
good. It's great.
Does the board have anything else before we go into non-public?
Nope.
Then I would,
We're not coming.
someone else who can read that
I'm
quick,
gonna s-
better than I.
I'll make a
just need
motion to
A,
move
right?
into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A:3, Article 2, Section A, and Section D.
Thank you, Mr. Weinberg. Seconded by Ms. Walsh. Let me know when you're ready, Ms. Hastings.
Yep.
So, make this a roll call vote.
Request to also be roll call? We'll do roll calls. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Meeker,
Yes.
Mr. Croto,
Aye.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Higgins,
Okay.
Ms. Walsh, Mr. Weinberg.
Aye.
And I will vote aye.
All right, we are
keeping it
in
fresh.
non-public session. We will not be conducting business after we come out, other than just to adjourn, so we will cease our broadcast